See, if you were going to bring an Indian outfit, I can't believe you didn't give me a heads up so I could go ahead and pop mine from the closet. I mean, come on.
I do my own market stream in the morning. Today I was just like, you know what? Tesla stock is down. We need something to brighten up the day. Let's do it.
I love it, dude. So I like to esports broadcasting, right? And we went out for a show, and I wore that like type of outfit. And I wore one that wasn't as colorful, and a coworker who's not exactly pleasant to work with, he no longer works with us at that time, was like, why is he dressed like a bellhopper, a bellman, whatever, at the hotel, the concierge? And I was like, okay, you're not wrong, because this isn't as flashy, but that's messed up. I wasn't a fan of it. But what's up, man? How's it going?
It's going good, man. Thank you for having me on. Excited to talk about the markets. It's been good.
Yeah, it should be fun. So let me ask you this before we kind of dive into anything. Dude, how was it being at that Robinhood event and just the experience itself? I was literally slacking our teammates because we covered the news, and I was like, this is badass. I signed up for gold right then and there. It was great. How'd you experience that?
It was a bit surreal for me, because the reason they invited me to the event was because I started covering the company when the stock was trading around $8 back in November-ish of 2023. And I just had a lot of long form posts on Twitter that I didn't know the Robinhood communications team was looking at. But I was just like, dude, I think this is the best risk reward in the market. I think these guys are crushing it. And I think the market doesn't really get it yet. And as you know, stock's done well, company's done well. But for them to invite me to that event was really cool, because when you are a supporter of a company, but then you're in person watching that company, in my eyes, transform their trajectory. That's how massive that event was. I didn't expect those announcements. I knew we would get a credit card and stuff like that, but the stuff they announced was like, all right, the street's really going to take them seriously, hopefully in the coming years.
One question about that event, and then we'll move on to actually talking about the stock. I know Vlad did the whole Steve Jobs things where he said, we've got 3 credit cards. And then he tried to position it as that moment of, it's a 3-in-1. How long, don't lie now, how long did it take you to realize that it was actually 1 credit card and not 3? Or did you know right off the bat?
No. So the funny thing about this is when he said that, I was staring at him. For some reason, Vlad kept staring at me, because we got to talk a little bit before he went live. And I don't think he was nervous, but you always look at someone in the audience to make sure things are going well. And so every time they did a big announcement, because they had a bunch of them, he looked at me and looked at if I was clapping or not. And I was like, yeah, this is great. And so then he announces the 3 cards. In my head, I'm like, this is the dumbest idea ever. Why would you do 3 cards? But he's looking at me, right? So I'm looking at him and I'm like, let's do it, baby. 3 cards. Give me 17 cards. Give me 1,000 cards. And then finally at the end, he was like, do you get it? And I was like, oh. And then I was so happy because I did not want
it. Yeah. Because in my head, I was like, damn, now I got to worry about the perks of which one I want. So no, I'm excited for it right away, man. Okay, let's talk about it, right? Because a lot of conversation once the perks of it came out, where it's like, hey, you've got the 3% match on the Roth IRA, when you've got the 3% reward cash back on everything, right? You have different credit cards. Like I have a Citi Cashback, gives me 2% back. I've got a Sapphire, which depending on travel and dining, you get 5 points back. A credit that's a 5%, yada, yada, yada. This is 3% no matter what you're doing in life. Let's be honest. Sometimes, because I am a credit card churner, if I'm paying rent with the credit card, I'm being charged 3%. If I pay with my Citi Double Cashback, I'm losing 1%, right? But with this, it's as if I just paid with my debit card. It is massive. It is huge. No one's denying that. But you have some insights and thoughts on the people that are saying they can't afford this because they're not that big. The Fidelities of the world couldn't do this. The Schwabs of the world aren't doing this. How do you think Robinhood can pull it off? What do you say to those folks?
I think it's all about user acquisition. I think at this moment right now, eventually this 3% probably won't be 3%. And eventually there'll be a cap on how much you can get a 3% on. I think that's in the future. Like every credit card does that. But for now, it's a question of how can you grab users? And the way to grab users is to create a phenomenal experience, which is 3% cash back. Now, even if it lasts, let's say a year of them giving flat 3% cash back, how does that work? They're going to lose 1.5% generously on this card because they get a 1.5% interchange fee. Right. So how do they make up for that 1.5%? My idea is the master plan is that this is a loss leader for the business, but it's a loss leader that will be made up in significant amounts if it works. I think the 3% cash back, they have this one button on the credit card app that allows you to transfer all your points into, so if you have $100 and 3% cash back, you could transfer it right into your Robinhood app. I think they're going to explode deposits, and they make a ton of money off the interest on deposits. And in general, when you're a gold subscriber, you have a 8x the amount of an account size than a regular subscriber, and you deposit 2 times faster. So I think deposits, they'll be able to make more money. And the credit card itself will get people trapped into the ecosystem, which is going to be overall net good for Robinhood.
And I know you've been purchasing slowly but surely as the stock does dip. I think it was around maybe $21 or so around the time of the event. Now it's at trading about 17.42 live here.
Yeah.
They've got earnings coming up. I think it's like May 8th or somewhere around in that ballpark. And I know that because I have it on my schedule to reach out to you. Are you expecting big numbers in terms of deposits for Q1 though? Or do you feel like this is more of a Q2 play where folks are kind of realizing, oh, okay, hey, I got to do this? Or do you feel like, because especially look, you had tax, right? On April 15th, that is in Q2. So maybe people like me who are late, they're like, oh, wait, I got to take advantage of my Roth IRA deposit or whatever. So to wrap that mumble jumble into the words, are you expecting big deposit numbers in Q1? Or do you feel like it's a more of a Q2 play?
I am still expecting Q1 to be gigantic, and the reason for that is because their deposits have went from in retirement accounts. AUC, assets under custody, went from 1.5 billion to 4 billion over the past 9 days. That's public data. So that already has gone up more than 2x. They said that 25,000 people by the end of March transferred their retirement accounts. So that's over those 90 days. In January, they added 60,000 gold subscribers, which is 3x the amount of the monthly average of 20,000 in 2023. I don't know if those numbers held up in February and March, but they already did 7.4 billion in deposits in the first 2 months. If they did another 3 billion month in March, let's say they even did 2.5, they're coming in at 10 billion for the quarter, which is more than what they've done in the past 2 years. So I think it's gonna be gigantic. And the reason I'm bullish on the stock is because I think Q2 is gonna be gigantic as well.
For
so
sure.
I think they're gonna have a good year.
Well, here's my question, and we'll move on to Palantir in a minute. The numbers that you mentioned, obviously they're public, right? No one's trying to go to jail. But do you not feel like, hey, it's not baked into the price already? Or do you feel like the street is too focused on AI, inflation, and everything else that's happening and isn't really thinking long-term? Therefore, it's a good opportunity to buy? Or do you feel like, yeah, it is baked in, but I'm looking at Q2, 3, 4, and 5? You know,
I think so. I don't think it's baked in. I think the stock is at a run up, but I think a lot of people, because when they see a stock run up, they're like, all right, the good news is baked in. The stock was for 22 months, $8. It broke out. It broke out of a range. And when it broke out of a range, I did not expect for it to have the momentum that it had in terms of the gold events and all these catalysts. But those catalysts to me are just reasons for why the stock deserves to be a little higher. If you look at the enterprise value, the market caps right now of Robinhood, I'm looking at 15.2 billion. They have 5 billion in cash. That means you're paying 10 billion for a company that's growing 37% year over year, that is going to have deposits explode. And we really didn't even talk about the fact that if crypto gets anywhere near 85, 90,000, I mean, that's also going to increase trading volume. So I think there's a lot of room for this one.
And, you know, from the recent highs, not obviously highs of all time or anything like that, it's down about 15%. So from all the hype, like you kind of mentioned, you had a nice little spike up. And then from, you know, the end of the March, you've kind of got a nice little pullback. So look at that. My lines kind of do work sometimes. It bounced right off of 1658. That's always a good feeling. Any final thoughts on Robinhood before we move on to Palantir?
I got to speak.
The crypto is huge. The crypto. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Let's talk about that, dude. Okay. I know you said you reached out to your mom and she was like ecstatic about it, but, you know, maybe it took a while to explain it. Tell me how that experience was just as a human being. Forget the analyst side of it and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Vlad that was crazy is he wanted to do the interview. So when I got to talk to him a little bit before the interview happened, because the guy was setting up the lights, I was like, so who set this up? And he was like, dude, I told my board I wanted you to interview me. And he was like, the board kind of didn't want it because they were afraid of the reputation for the brand. Right. And he basically said, no. If we're a retail company that, you know, is for the side of retail, then we're going to have a retail guy interview me. So he's been reading my tweets for a while. That's why he was excited to have he hasn't done an interview in like 3 years. That's really long for him. My mom was going crazy because she just like, she doesn't know that I'm on YouTube and Twitter and that there's this audience that's like, she doesn't get it. Right. But so the fact that when you're in it, she told everyone in India, so all 1.3 billion people now know Robinhood's brand. So thank you. You're welcome, Robinhood. We did some marketing for you.
That is crazy. Amazing. Yeah, I know how those WhatsApps blow up because anytime I'm doing like a stream, and I had a big one maybe about 4 months ago. My siblings' WhatsApp was blowing up. I don't have any siblings, but it's my parents' siblings and then their siblings that are all in one WhatsApp. And so,
what's funny is I texted my sister. Me and Vlad took a selfie at the gold event, and I texted it to my family, and my sister was like, "Who's that?" So my sister did not give a crap, dude.
Just a billionaire. That's all it is. Well, let's move on to another billionaire. The CEO is talking about how people that are short the stock must be on cocaine. That was a nice little viral clip that went off. And of course, I'm talking about Palantir for the folks that aren't familiar with it. Stock, I mean, I traded this one, right? When it cracked $20, you can see kind of like my lines already there. I haven't adjusted them. Went on a nice little run up. Now we've got a recent pullback. What are your thoughts on Palantir, especially because, look, a lot of the world is like, are you spying on us? Is this what this company does? Are you helping the government? This, that, the other. Forgetting that aspect of it, but like looking at the fundamentals, what do you think about the stock?
Well, the fundamentals are really important. I think the SPY narrative is people that really haven't took time to research the stock. If you do any level of research, there's a lot the company is doing that's actually protecting a lot of governments and corporations in a meaningful way. I think in terms of the fundamentals, Q1 earnings are going to do very well because customer count is going to go up. I think it's going to CAGR at around 12% per quarter. When customer count goes up, Palantir is able to generate top line revenue. The reason the stock gets a bad rap in the SaaS circles of Wall Street is because they're growing less than 20% year over year, but they're trading at a decent multiple. I think that PE is going to come down as growth goes higher. And I think the street is not pricing in how explosive that growth is going to be. This was at 27.50 when they got a Titan contract, which is a government contract for $180 million 3 weeks ago. And it's fallen down pretty significantly. They can get a contract tomorrow that explodes their revenues and reaccelerates government. And I think as a result of that, Q1 earnings can go really well.
Now, I know you've been slowly kind of purchasing and, getting in your average. How long of a play is this for you, right? And when you play things like Robinhood, when you play things like Palantir as well, are you kind of looking in the sense of like, hey, this is a swing trade for me? So, for example, for me, Palantir, I'd be like, all right, cool, I'm trying to get in now, maybe sell it around $27-30. But are you more so thinking, hey, a year, 2 years? What's your thought process here when you have already started buying and you publicly share that on Twitter as well?
Yeah. My goal is to hold Palantir forever. I mean, and I mean that metaphorically, right? Like this is one of the highest conviction stocks I have on the planet. This is Robinhood to me started as a trade. And then, and I do have, some options that will expire eventually. So those will have to be traded. But I've started buying the stock because I just started to believe in the overall story of them going up against the Schwabs and Fidelities of the world and them having a real moat from that perspective. Palantir, I think it has the largest moat of any company in the stock market. And it's a much broader discussion, but as a result of that, I want to hold it forever. It's a company that I think can reach a Salesforce Oracle type of market cap, 300-400 billion. Right now it's at 50. And so I think it can do well.
Now, when would you say, hey, you know what? I was wrong and I need to get out the stock? Because I always like to hear the side of if X happens fundamentally, right? Whether it's a executive change, whether it's a strategy change, or contracts aren't as juicy as you may have thought, or accounts receivable has an issue. What has to go wrong with Palantir fundamentally for you to say, you know what? I was wrong. I'm out.
So the funny thing about Palantir is that their fundamentals are really good. Adjusted operating margins are up from 17% to 34%. I mean, that's unheard of to double those in 18 months. It's really stock-based compensation is 22% of revenues. That's come down. The one thing that sucks about them is that top line revenue growth is below 20%. If they can't get that bad boy to 25 in the next 18 months, year over year, and CAGR at 25%, because you can't be a software company not growing at 25. That would be a red flag. So I think they'll get there, but it's going to take, probably 12 to 18 months to get there.
Let's go back to Hood here for a minute. What has to go wrong there for you to say I was wrong, I'm out?
I think deposits have to not increase the way I'm thinking. The credit card launch potentially could go wrong in terms of Robinhood messes up the underwriting of the credit. And the funny thing about Hood, and this is if the market declines, Robinhood probably will decline because it's so sensitive against the market. The reason I started buying that, which is why I was always against it as a long-term play. The reason I started liking it as a long-term play is because the gold business they're building and the retirement business they're building, to me, separates the stock, not a lot, but at least to an extent, from the fundamentals of the market. And if they can continue to show that separation is real, then that's bullish. If they can't show that separation, then it's really hard to hold it because eventually the market will fall up and down.
Yeah, and we briefly touched on the crypto side of things for Robinhood, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if I saw any real perks there, right? There was no real deposit match or anything about crypto at that event. It was solely focused on the deposits, the match, or anything like that. So, now, which is interesting because of the hype of crypto at the moment.
Well, over the past couple of weeks, they announced a couple of level 2 Ethereum partnerships, super nerdy stuff. They released the Android crypto app wallet, but nothing for crypto people. And I think it's because they're really scared to mess with the SEC. I mean, Robinhood would have Solana, which is one of the major cryptos on their platform, and they would have a lot of juicy Solana revenue that Coinbase is getting a monopoly on. But the SEC said they would shut them down because it's an unregistered security. So it's tough to work with crypto.
Isn't that crazy to you? And I know we're over time here, so I'll kind of keep it brief. That, hey, you have one publicly traded company that's able to do it, but you have another one that's not. And I assume this is because of the magnifying glass that you have because of the whole AMC thing and the options issues that they've had in the past. With the clearinghouse and like liquidity issues, and in that sense, or what was rumored to be liquidity issues. I know he addressed it that it wasn't that, but
I also think it's because they have stocks on the platform, so the SEC takes them way more seriously. They're a legit brokerage versus Coinbase, which is not really a brokerage at the end. So they have to deal with the Schwab and Fidelity regulations. And the good thing though is in 2021, Robinhood did $231 million of crypto revenue in Q2. Last quarter we did like 25 million. So or 43 million. So we have a long way to go to get back up to those real bull market numbers, which I don't know if it'll happen, but if Bitcoin gets closer to 85, 90K, it has a chance of happening, which is another catalyst on the stock as well over the long term.
Last thoughts, any final thoughts from you in terms of any other stock that you're kind of looking at? I know we've talked about Robinhood. You're a fan of that. You're bullish there. Palantir, you're bullish there. Any other stock, especially as we go into earnings season before we hop off?
I think SoFi has been beaten up over the past few months. I think SoFi, Anthony Noto, CEO, Rockstar, I think he's going to crush on April 29th. I don't know if they could sustain a pump. I do think there will be a pump closer to $8-9. Right now it's at like $7.15 or something.
Yeah.
And we'll see if it can hold that pump over the long term.
I was watching the playoffs, or I guess the play-in yesterday, and I think it was some segment or something that was sponsored by SoFi. In my head, I was like, man, this stock just trades so thick. Like, it just never sustains itself. It just I remember being like, oh, student loan forgiveness, this and that. This thing is going to pop. Like, look at this range, right? We've been in this range.
They have a 20% short float. That's screwing them. Yeah. And they recently just announced they're the official bank of the NBA. So for people that think SoFi can go bankrupt, I'm like, I just don't think the NBA would allow them to become the official bank if the company is going bankrupt. So I think the catalysts are there, but the shorts have to stop messing with it. And the CEO has to drop a hammer and make people feel stupid for not owning the stock for the pump to sustain itself after earnings. And we'll see if he can do it.
Look, FTX might have something to say about the NBA not letting them mess up. All right, let's not forget what arena. What arena was it? The one in Miami, I believe.
American Airlines Arena. Yeah,
American Airlines. So but I hear you though that obviously this is a little bit different. But hey, man, really enjoy the conversation. Love the fit. By the way, the Believe that you have in the back, I've got a pillow that is the exact same thing.
My mom bought that for me, so there you go. Indian moms. There you go. There you go.
Love it. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and put your Twitter handle in the chat as well. And I look forward to more conversations, man.
Thank you, Zaneib. Appreciate it so much. See you next time.
Got it, boss. See ya.